The desperate Plaith, Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Federation, had witnessed many crises over its 1,000-year history, but never had its crystalline walls resonated with such desperate terror. Ambassador Lyara of the Seraphim Alliance stood at the center of the vast chamber, her translucent blue skin flickering with patterns of distress that every species present could recognize as pure anguish. The Seraphim were known throughout the galaxy as the most peaceful civilization ever encountered. Their worlds were gardens of impossible beauty, their cities works of art that took centuries to complete. They had never built a warship, never developed weapons of mass destruction, never even conceived of military strategy. For 2,000 years, they had traded knowledge, art, and wisdom with other species, believing that intelligence and compassion could solve any conflict. Honored representatives, Lyara began, her voice carrying the harmonic undertones that made Seraphim speech so beautiful. I come before you not as a diplomat, but as the voice of the dying. The Void Hunters have come to our worlds, and we ... We do not know how to fight them. The holographic display above the assembly showed images that made even the most hardened military officers present shift uncomfortably in their seats. Seraphim. Cities, once gleaming spires of artistic achievement, lay in ruins. The crystalline towers that had taken millennia to grow were shattered, their fragments scattered across blackened landscapes. Bodies of the fallen Seraphim littered the streets. Their natural bioluminescence faded to gray. High Counselor Vern, the ancient leader of the Altarian Republic, spread his feathered wings in a gesture of sympathy. The bird-like Altarians had been the galaxy's primary peacekeepers for centuries, their honor-bound military traditions respected by all civilized species. Ambassador Lyara, the Federation grieves with your people. How many worlds have been lost? 7 of our 12 core systems, Lyara replied, her voice breaking. The Void Hunters appeared without warning, without any attempt at communication. They simply began consuming everything. Our people, our cities, our very worlds themselves. They leave nothing behind but empty shells. The Void Hunters were a species that existed on the furthest edges of galactic civilization, rarely venturing into Federation space. They were known to be aggressive, but previous encounters had been limited to raids on isolated mining colonies or attacks on merchant vessels. No one had imagined they would launch a full-scale war of extermination against an entire civilization. General Kale of the Draconian Military Command stood up, his reptilian features grim. How many ships do they have committed to this campaign? Our surviving scouts report over 3,000 vessels, Lyara answered. They move in swarms, like insects, overwhelming our defenses through sheer numbers. We managed to evacuate perhaps a quarter of our population before the major colonies fell, but millions remain trapped on the occupied worlds. The assembly erupted in discussion. Representatives from dozens of species called out offers of aid, but the military advisors were already running calculations on their data displays. The Altarian Republic could contribute 200 ships. The Draconian Command had perhaps 300 vessels available. The Centurion Alliance could spare 50 heavy cruisers. Admiral Scrax of the Combined Fleet Operations stood and addressed the assembly. Even if we could coordinate all available forces from willing member species, we would need at least 4 months to properly organize such a fleet. Our intelligence suggests the Seraphim have perhaps 2 weeks before their remaining worlds fall. The hall fell into stunned silence. The most powerful military alliance in the galaxy was admitting that they could not save an entire species from extinction. The weight of that realization settled over the representatives like a funeral shroud. That was when Admiral Sarah Chun stood up. Chun represented Earth, one of the newest members of the Galactic Federation. Humanity had only made contact with galactic civilization 30 years ago, and most species still knew very little about them. Earth was classified as a Class 15 death world, a rating so extreme that most Federation members assumed it was an error in the database. Humans were generally dismissed as primitive newcomers who had little to contribute to advanced galactic society. Chun was a small woman by human standards, with graying hair and calm brown eyes. She wore the simple blue uniform of Earth Space Defense Force, without the elaborate decorations favored by other species' military leaders. When she spoke, her voice was quiet but carried clearly through the vast chamber. "The Earth Federation can provide immediate assistance," she said simply. "Hi." Counselor Vurin tilted his head in confusion. "Admiral Chun, while we appreciate Earth's willingness to help, this situation requires massive military intervention. How many ships can humanity possibly contribute?" "Enough," Chun replied. General Kale activated his data tablet and pulled up Earth's known military assets. According to our records, Earth's Space Force consists of approximately 200 vessels. While we value your offer, Admiral, the Void Hunters have committed 3,000 ships to this campaign. Chun looked around the assembly, meeting the eyes of representatives who had consistently underestimated her species. "Members of the Federation, I need to explain something about human military doctrine. When we decide to go to war, we don't send portions of our fleet or limited forces. We commit everything." She paused, choosing her words carefully. Human warfare evolved on a world where failure meant extinction. We learned that half measures in combat lead to defeat, and defeat means death. When humans fight, we fight to win completely. Ambassador Lyara stepped forward, her bioluminescent patterns shifting to hope. "Admiral Chun, my people will accept any help you can provide. We have nowhere else to turn." Chun nodded to the Seraphim diplomat. "Ambassador, you have Earth's full commitment. But I must warn the Assembly that human military operations may seem extreme compared to standard Federation practices. We don't follow the same rules of engagement that other species observe." "What do you mean by different rules?" asked Counselor Vurin. "Federation military doctrine is built around concepts of proportional response, civilian protection, and limited warfare," Chun explained. "These are admirable principles, but they assume your enemy shares similar values. The Void Hunters have demonstrated that they do not." She activated her own holographic display, showing tactical analyses of recent Void Hunter attacks. Human warfare doctrine is based on a simple principle. If someone threatens our species or our allies with extinction, we respond with overwhelming force designed to eliminate that threat permanently. Admiral Scrax frowned. "Admiral, our intelligence. Reports indicate that Earth has been spacefaring for less than a century. How can you possibly have developed effective strategies for large-scale space warfare?" Chun's expression remained calm, but something cold flickered in her eyes. "Admiral, those intelligence reports are incomplete. Humans have been perfecting the art of warfare for our entire evolutionary history. We've simply applied those lessons to space combat." The chamber buzzed with whispered conversations as species tried to understand what the human was suggesting. Finally, High Counselor Vurin called for order and addressed Chun directly. "Admiral, are you saying that Earth is prepared to engage 3,000 Void Hunter vessels with only 200 ships?" "No," Chun replied. "I'm saying that Earth is prepared to engage 3,000 Void Hunter vessels with everything we have." Before anyone could ask what she meant by that, Chun continued, "A Federation vote on emergency military intervention is required. All in favor of authorizing Earth's forces to engage the Void Hunters in defense of Seraphim territory?" The vote was unanimous. Every representative raised their hand, even those who seemed doubtful about Earth's capabilities. They were desperate, and Earth was offering hope when no one else could. Chun bowed formally to the assembly. "Thank you for your trust. Ambassador Lyara, We will not let your people fall to the Void Hunters. As the session ended and representatives began filing out of the chamber, none of them understood what they had just authorized. They had asked a Deathworld species for military aid, and now they would learn exactly what that meant. Within hours of the Federation vote, emergency broadcasts were transmitted to every human world, colony, and outpost. The message was simple. Humanity was going to war. The Deathworld response, the response to Earth's war declaration, was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. Within 6 hours of Admiral Chun's address to the Federation, every human military installation across 50 star systems burst into frantic activity. But this was not the limited mobilization that other species expected. This was something far more comprehensive and terrifying. On Luna, the massive orbital shipyards that normally produced civilian vessels, research ships, and cargo haulers were retooling for war production. The transformation was swift and efficient, guided by contingency plans that had been prepared decades earlier. Assembly lines that had been building exploration vessels the day before were now producing military hardware at an unprecedented pace. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, Earth's chief military strategist, stood in the command center overlooking the Luna yards, watching the controlled chaos unfold. Banks of displays showed production schedules, resource allocation, and fleet coordination across human space. The numbers scrolling past would have seemed impossible to outside observers. Status report, Rodriguez ordered. Colonel James Park, her intelligence officer, approached with a data tablet. All defense fleets have been recalled to staging areas. The Mars Defense Force is moving to Sol System. Asteroid mining operations have converted their entire industrial capacity to military production. What about the outer colonies? Colony defense forces are being integrated into the main fleet. Even the agricultural worlds are contributing transport vessels and supply ships. The civilian merchant marine has been activated under military command. Rodriguez nodded as she studied the tactical displays. Ships were converging on Earth from dozens of systems. But these weren't just military vessels. Human civilian ships were being rapidly converted for war duty. Cargo haulers became troop transports. Mining ships became mobile weapons platforms. Research vessels became electronic warfare units. Passenger liners became medical ships. Colonel, we're receiving communications from other Federation species. They're asking why we're mobilizing civilian vessels. Rodriguez looked at the growing fleet formations around Earth. They don't understand our doctrine, Colonel. They think of war as something conducted by professional soldiers with specialized equipment. We think of war as something that involves entire civilizations. The truth was that human military planning had always assumed that any war in space would be total war. There were no safe rear areas in the void, no clear distinctions between military and civilian targets. Every human vessel was designed with the potential for military conversion. Every human citizen trained in basic combat principles. Admiral Chun arrived at the command center, having traveled directly from the Federation Assembly. What's our status? Better than anticipated, Rodriguez replied. We'll have 1,200 vessels ready for deployment within 48 hours. 1,200? Chun raised an eyebrow. The Federation thinks we only have 200 ships. The Federation counts only dedicated military vessels, explained Colonel Park. They don't include our merchant marine, corporate fleets, colony defense forces, or converted civilian ships. They also don't understand that our research vessels are actually military ships disguised as scientific expeditions. Chun smiled grimly, and they have no idea about the reserve fleet. The reserve fleet was humanity's most closely guarded secret. Hidden in asteroid fields, stored in artificial caverns, and maintained by automated systems, thousands of additional vessels waited in strategic locations throughout human space. These ships represented humanity's ultimate insurance policy against extinction, built in secret over decades of seemingly peaceful development. Meanwhile, in the Void Hunter fleet, Warlord Kythax received his own intelligence briefing about Earth's mobilization. The massive predator sat in his command throne aboard the dreadnought Devourer, his black carapace gleaming under the ship's harsh lighting. Like all Void Hunters, Kythax was built for warfare, standing nearly 4 meters tall with natural armor plating and retractable combat claws. "Report," he growled to his intelligence chief. "The mammals are mobilizing, Warlord," replied Commander Vex, studying holographic displays. "Our scouts report unusual activity around their home system." "How many ships can they field?" "Intelligence estimates no more than 300 vessels, Warlord. Their entire species has been spacefaring for less than a century. They have no experience in true warfare." Kythax's mandibles clicked in amusement. 300 ships against 3,000. These mammals are either brave or stupid. Analysis of their vessel designs suggests they are neither particularly advanced nor heavily armed, Vex continued. Their ships appear to prioritize speed and efficiency over firepower and protection. Speed will not save them from the swarm, Kythax decided. Continue the assault on the Seraphim worlds. We will crush these human insects when they arrive. But the Void Hunter's intelligence was incomplete. They had observed human ships in normal operations, during peaceful exploration and trade missions. They had never seen human vessels configured for total war. Back on Earth, immobilization continued at a pace that amazed even human observers. Captain Marcus Webb, recently promoted to command the heavy cruiser Defiance, watched from his bridge as the ship underwent rapid military conversion. The Defiance had been a deep space exploration vessel just days earlier, but teams of technicians were now installing military-grade weapon systems, enhanced shielding, and electronic warfare capabilities. "Captain," called Lieutenant Sarah Torres from the communications station, "we're receiving reports from other Federation species. They're expressing concern about the scale of our mobilization." Webb pulled up the communications logs. Messages from Altarian military commanders, Draconian fleet officers, and even Seraphim survivors all expressed the same sentiment: confusion and growing worry about Earth's response. "They think we're overreacting," Webb observed. "Are we?" asked Commander Lisa Chun, his executive officer. Webb considered the question as he watched another converted civilian vessel join the growing fleet. "Commander, the Void Hunters are committing genocide against an entire species. In human terms, that's not overreacting to total war with overwhelming force. That's the only rational response." The cultural gap between humanity and other galactic species was becoming apparent. Federation races had evolved their military. Doctrines over millennia of limited conflicts, border disputes, and political wars. They fought for territory, resources, or political advantage, but rarely for the complete destruction of enemy species. Humans had learned warfare in a different school. On Earth, conflicts had often been existential struggles where defeat meant extinction. Human military doctrine had evolved to reflect this reality. When fighting for survival, there were no rules. Except victory. Dr. Rodriguez addressed this issue in a briefing to Earth's senior commanders. "The other Federation species don't understand what we're doing because they've never faced true existential threats. Their wars are political exercises with limited objectives. Our wars are survival struggles with only one acceptable outcome." The assembled officers nodded. They had all studied the lessons of human history, from ancient tribal conflicts to the global wars of the 20th and 21st centuries. Every human military leader understood that half measures in warfare led to prolonged conflict and unnecessary casualties. "The Void Hunters have declared war on the concept of civilization itself," Rodriguez continued. "They're not trying to conquer the Seraphim. They're trying to erase them from existence. There's only one appropriate response to that level of threat. General Thomas Hayes, commander of the Marine Corps, stood up. What are our rules of engagement? Rodriguez's expression hardened. General, our rules of engagement are simple. The Void Hunter fleet must be completely eliminated. No survivors, no retreats, no second chances. We're not fighting a war. We're conducting an extermination. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Other Federation species might have been horrified by such language, but the human officers understood the necessity. The Void Hunters had demonstrated that they could not be reasoned with, could not be deterred, and would continue their genocidal campaign unless stopped permanently. As the briefing ended, the assembled commanders returned to their vessels to prepare for departure. The human fleet was nearly ready, and soon the galaxy would learn what happened when a Deathworld species went to war. In the outer edges of the Sol system, Captain Zephyr of the Altarian observation ship Windtalker watched the human mobilization with growing amazement. The bird-like captain had been assigned to monitor Earth's response and report back to Federation Command. But what? She was seeing defied all expectations. "Communications officer," she called, "send a priority message to Federation Command. The humans are not sending a rescue mission. They're launching a full-scale military campaign." "What should I tell them about fleet size?" asked her communications officer. Captain Zephyr looked at her tactical displays, which showed more than 1,000 human vessels in various stages of preparation. "Tell them that our intelligence estimates were wrong. Very wrong.